What's up, everybody? It's your boy Josh with JTM Racing. What's going on? So today I decided to dive in and start doing the stereo system on the Jimmy. Now we're putting a double din deck, wiring up a sub and an amp, and a reverse camera. So we have quite a bit to do. It shouldn't be too bad. I don't know if it's going to be on this video or I'm going to be breaking it down in parts. So we'll just have to see. Pretty much what we have to do is the Jimmys, the Blazers, the S10s, the Sonomas, they all came with like a din and a half deck this year range. So a double din doesn't fit in perfectly snug. So you do have to do some trimming to the actual stereo bezel on the dash where the air vents are. So that's going to be customization. That's going to take some time to actually make it look clean. I know there's been other people on YouTube that have done it. I'm not impressed by any of them really. So I want to make this look clean as possible if we can. I kind of have an idea of what we can do, but we have a lot of wiring to do as well. So we got to run our sub and amp wiring. We have to run the reverse camera wiring. We have to run this GPS antenna as well. Find a clean spot to put that on the Jimmy. There's just a lot to do. I think far as last, we'll be actually getting the deck mounted in the dash, looking clean. I did already wire that in. The stereo itself, I wired that in probably about a year and a half ago, and now I'm just trying to complete all of this. I did lose the footage to that. It's pretty simple. I would recommend soldering and actually using like clean ass wire shrink to make it look clean as possible and to get the best results. But we're going to be doing the full audio system in the Jimmy. The only thing we're not doing is speakers, because it already has Pioneer speakers in the dash and then also in the rear. Sub and amp, we have a Prestige amp that's pretty old school. Pyramid Imperial sub, 1200 watt. So we got to wire that in. The box is already ready. I can't believe I just said ready twice. But interior wise, we got to tuck all the wiring in here, try to figure it out. Maybe install the center console. But yeah, we'll get her done, and she's gonna look clean. So I'll show you what we'll start off with, and I'll show you all the wiring. I'll show you the deck, the reverse camera, all that stuff. Let's just do it. All right, guys. So here's the wiring for the truck. We got your main power wire. We got your reverse camera wire. Got your RCAs. You got your remote wire. The deck has two harnesses. This is one of the harnesses that goes to the deck where you're going to get your RCAs, your reverse camera. You know, you can put your rear and front speakers through this as well if you're running an amp for them. You got video as well, just in case you got like TVs in the headrest, or you know, one of the ones that fold down from the ceiling. Not going to do any of that crap, but whatever. But yeah, that's the wiring there. Just got it kind of laid out on the floor. You got your reverse camera right here, same brand, Boss. You got the bezel for the dash where the double din's going to go. This has to be trimmed because it's only made for like a din and a half. Got your ground wire right here. This is the antenna for the navigation. So yeah, we have all that stuff. And then I'll show you the deck real quick. It's in the front of the Jimmy, chilling on the seat. Willy's on his way over to give me a hand. Kind of starting late, actually. Got a Pyramid Imperial sub, 1200 watt, pretty old school. Got an old school Prestige amp that matches the Jimmy. Probably made around the same year. Hopefully it bumps pretty well. I'm big on the old school stuff. And then here's our Boss double din deck right here. Pretty clean. Paid 170 bucks. Here's the harness all cleaned up, done. Got some shrink wrap or wiring shrink connectors. Shrink wrap, shit. But yeah, you got a couple options here. You got a reverse wire, brake wire, key and ground, you know, a couple little things to wire back up. And you got this wiring here, which is for the rear hatch. Have the switch for that. That's all located in that bezel itself. But yeah, that's the deck. I think total I spent, reverse camera, the deck, just those two things, I think I spent $200, which is not bad. It's not the best quality, I would say, but it's still decent. Amp I bought off of my friend Ryan for 20 bucks. He had it chilling, so I picked it up. And it matches the Jimmy perfect. Like I said, white with the red. Even has a pinstripe at the bottom. And then the sub, I think I got 2 of them for 20 bucks from my buddy TJ. So first thing we'll start doing is trying to get the power wire through the firewall, because that's going to be our main source of power, which me and Willie were talking about it yesterday. We're going to remove this plate on the battery. We're going to run a terminal, or why can't I think right now? A terminal, and so it has straight power going to the top of the battery, because it has side posts as well. So it'll have its own supply, won't be bunched up with that connector going right to the battery. I'll take this cap, put it on the ground side, paint the cap black or something, just so you know. But yeah, so we're gonna try getting that power wire ran through. Might have to pull off the side moldings, the driver's side and the passenger side. I'm going to try to tuck everything else the best I can without having to pull any of these panels out, because I don't want to be breaking any clips. So we're really going to try to tuck it under this stuff. We'll be using my interior removal little bars, whatever you call them. You know, it's pretty much like a clip removal kit, but we're just going to be prying stuff up, trying to be careful as possible. So yeah, let's do it. All right, guys, so I started feeding the power wire. I'm actually feeding it from the inside out. So we got the wire coming all the way to the battery with a little bit of slack. Feeds all the way down to the side of the block through a rubber grommet on the other side. Kind of show you close. So if you get under here, I drilled a hole in the rubber grommet, the original rubber grommet. Put a rubber grommet around the wire itself. This black wire right here, I'm actually feeding in because I caught a wire and actually ripped it in half with the drill bit, not meaning to, a wire that was already being ran on the outside of the actual original harness. But yeah, we got a rubber grommet in there, pushed up in there, so there's no bare metal cutting at the main power wire. And we are going to start feeding it through this side of the vehicle, and we're going to have to go under all the panels until we get to the back, which the back I don't think will be an issue. I think it's more by the back seats, closer to the back of the front seats, where there's going to be an issue of getting it underneath. So we'll just have to figure it out. No, that's definitely going to come out.
Back here it's kind of loose where you might be able to just
feed it under. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we'll mess with this grommet a little bit more if I think it needs to be a little bit different. But right now, I think that's actually kind of golden. Yeah, we're good. As long as there's no metal cutting into the wire itself, I think we're straight. So. All right, let's pull this trim off and start feeding it. All right, so we got our power wire running all the way to the back of the Jimmy. Comes out right about there. That's as far as I'm going to tuck it. So if you can see, got it running from the firewall. This carpet will cover it. We'll either zip tie it to another harness or like tape it to the actual firewall itself. And then it runs down this little crease, which will be covered also by a little panel. If you can see the 4 screw holes. And then I was able to get it tucked inside all these panels all the way to the back. It was a pain in the ass to get it tucked under this panel of where the fender well is, and it runs along the seat belt right here. If you can see it, the seat belt and then the seat bracket. But if I was you, to make it easier, I would pull out the rear seats. It was a pain in the ass. Me and Willie been dealing with this for like the last 45 minutes, just trying to get in there so it's actually clean. I I know to make it clean, I would go under every single panel, but I am not wanting to break clips. I'm not wanting to unscrew panels. I'm trying to get it all tucked. So it's kind of the easiest way possible, because I just don't feel like ripping this thing apart, to be honest with you, and putting it all back together. So I'm good with that. Got it tucked. Like I said though, pull out the back seats. Makes it a lot easier. There was a screw on that panel itself I had to undo because the panel wouldn't raise high enough to tuck the wire underneath. But screw can't go back in because now where that screw hole was, it's lower than where the panel sits now because it was raised because of the power wire. So yeah, that's where we're at. We'll keep going. I guess the next ones are running the RCAs and the remote wire and the rear view camera, or backup camera. I keep saying rear view camera, backup camera wire. Alright, so it's the next day. We didn't finish up everything yesterday, and I doubt we'll get everything finished today. But the last thing I have footage of is running the power wire from the battery to the back. Do recommend pulling out the rear seats to make it a little bit easier on you. If you want to get crazy, you can pull out the rear panels. Like I said, I'm not doing that. I ain't trying to break clips. None of these have ever been out, and this is a 91. So I don't want no rattles, no shakes. So I'm just tucking all the wires behind the panels as clean as I can, which is making it a little bit more of a pain, but it's going to be worth it because I don't feel like taking all the interior out and having to pop it all back in and then find out I break some clips I can't get right away, and now it's a big old long process. So the power wire is ran. I did hook it up to the battery and to the back of the amp. So we got our power running to the battery side of the amp. We got our ground hooked up. Got to hook up a remote once the wires ran back here. Ground wire is probably going to be grounded right off to the center of here where this little hook goes. So I'm going to clean up this bolt really good, clean up this hook, get it all bare, make sure we got bare metal in the threads in here so we have a decent ground. Hopefully that works out. If not, we'll figure something else out. But this is nice and close, and I think it will work out. So we'll do that. Have to run the wiring on the passenger side. On this side we have our RCAs, a remote wire, and a reverse camera wire right there as well. So pretty much what I'm going to do is, if you look at this side, how I have it taped with electrical tape about every foot, we'll do that for the whole thing, pretty much creating our own wiring loom. It was a bitch and a half feeding it through the dash. It's very tight, limited space, but me and Willie took a coat hanger. Pretty much I fed the back in first, so the wiring all the way back here I fed in first, so I didn't have to feed up under the dash. I could feed up down the dash or feed down the dash. So it was a little bit easier, but it was a pain. Got to work, pretty much taped it all up. So I was dealing with the wiring, but it was all tight. Fed it down with a coat hanger. And then once I got it down there and I was able to pull it out, I pulled the coat hanger out, the stereo side. Pain in the ass. You might find another way of doing it. But yeah, all the wiring is going on this side. For your RCAs, your remote wire, and your reverse camera. And then your main power wire, like I said, is on the passenger side. And we got all of our deck wiring. Me and Willie were talking about probably putting the navigation antenna somewhere up in this corner and run the wiring down the pillar, passenger side or driver side, really don't matter. But pretty much what we're going to be doing right now is feeding all this wire, getting it to the back, and then getting this ground figured out, which I know the amp in this sub does work because temporarily last night I just ran all the wires right over the top of the back seat, plugged it all in. We were having some issues with the ground, so the amp would kick off and on, but it was the ground. As soon as you wiggled the ground around, it would kick back on. So it's not the cleanest sound as far as this sub goes. Amp's old school. I think the amp is decent. I think we're going to have to get a better quality sub, because this is probably a low-end brand knockoff. Probably rock out like a Rockford or an Audiobahn or something like that, maybe a high-end Pioneer. Of course, amp might get changed out later too, because it's nothing too crazy. It's only a 500 watt 4-channel. Maybe we could bridge it. But yeah, so that's where we're at right now. So to get this wiring fed, I did have to remove the plate under the bottom of the dash, which is this guy right here. But yeah, so we're just going to continue feeding this wire, get it to the back. So this is all tied up back here and we have no issues. That's the hardest part, is just feeding the wire, honestly, and then tying up everything at the end. So let's do it. Alright, so it should look something like this once you get it all taped together. Now I could put like plastic wiring loom on this and tape over that as well for wire protection, but that's going to make the fit a lot more snug, a lot more harder to do. So I'm going to tuck it just like this so it's not as much of a problem, and probably have to tuck it across the dash here somewhere, zip tie it to some other wiring, and then bring it down the side and just bring it all the way down like the power wire, and we're pretty much going to follow the same steps. And hopefully that one corner piece is not a pain in the ass. If we have to pull out the little screw on this side of the panel where the wheel well is, just to lift it up high enough for the wiring to get tucked underneath, then that's what we got to do, because we did that on the passenger side. So it's so snug, the screw doesn't really need to be there. It bothers me because I want it there, but it is what it is. What do you want more, right? Alright, so I got all the stuff on the driver's side tucked away. Had to go behind some of the original wiring under the dash. There it is right there, fed it around the column, going behind the fuse box or around that area where all the other wiring is, got it all tucked. There it comes down that corner. The rocker comes down the side, which this is all going to be covered by panels. And then here it goes behind the rear panels. Now, it was a lot easier today because I knew what I had to do to get it tucked under this side. So I did end up pulling out that screw just to get a little bit more leverage on the panel and pulling it up. Now all tucked away. And then it comes through the rear panel over here. Do have to clean it up a little bit, but got the RCAs plugged in. Doing the ground at the moment, cleaned it up a little bit down there, but those threads are nice and shiny. Here's my backup camera wiring, which will get tucked under this panel all the way down to the middle, probably pop out somewhere around here. And then what I did for the ground, we'll see how it works. I took my Dremel out. I cleaned the shit out of this bolt that goes in between this hook. Clean that up just so these are both exposing some bare metal. So hopefully when this goes through here, we'll run our ground right in between these two, and then all these threads will hit those other threads and it'll be grounded out. We'll just have to see how it works. So that's what I'm going to hook up. And then I'll plug up the deck temporarily with the remote wire and the RCAs, and we'll go from there. See if we get power, and if we get some bump coming out of this sub. We'll have to see. Let's do it. Just to prove that we got the sub working. Alright, so you saw the sub and amp working. Got that all wired up, working pretty decent. I did have to switch out the sub with the other one I had because I have two of these. I had one that my dad fixed for me. He had to resolder the wiring on it. So I switched it out because the other sub just stopped working. I don't think it was the amp overheating, because usually when the amp overheats, it gets really hot to the touch, and it was still pretty cold. So I don't think it was the amp. Switched out the sub, started working again. Do have to clean up some wiring back here, probably with some zip ties and stuff. Figure it out. Probably kind of like tuck that power wire back. Probably do it only so clean, unless you're running wires like right out of a hole out of a panel. But yeah, so that's that. All this wiring will be covered with panels and moldings. Got to clean up that. Got to clean up stuff under the dash. This is going to be the biggest pain in the ass out of the whole thing. Trying to get all that wiring tucked behind the deck and getting that bezel trimmed out to where it fits properly. Looking forward to it, but I'm not. So we'll just have to see how it turns out. We're going to have to really take our time and kind of do it in like little ass baby steps, just so we don't mess it up, because I really don't want to have to find a whole another bezel and just, you know, mess up trimming it out. So hopefully the first time is a charm, just to kind of show you what's going on with the power wire. So I have to clean this up as well, probably reroute it, but it's coming from the firewall coming up. And then this battery has two types of posts, top post and side post. I just ran it to the top post because this does use side post terminals. I had an extra red terminal sitting around, so I was like, oh, that's perfect. It's a power wire. It's running its own power post, like it has its own post here. So that's really cool. Don't have to try to get it all in one terminal. Has its separate own power line or power feed, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you know, I'm not so big on the sub and amp anymore. In high school we were. You know, I'm 30, so it's not really that big of a deal to me, but it is cool to have it. You know, if you want to bump some music, you know, go to the lake, bump some Sublime or whatever, you know. So that's kind of why I'm doing it. I remember the old days, my dad and my Uncle Paul and all of them had subs and amps and always had dope ass stereo systems in their truck, which this ain't crazy or nothing by far. I mean, I've had way sicker shit than this. And this is pretty basic, and even some of the other shit that I've had that's pretty high end is pretty basic compared to like competition stuff. This is literally probably a $50 setup right here. I mean, back in the day maybe a little bit different, but for me, $50 setup, bumping. So got some more bass. It's really about getting all these panels in and getting the deck hooked up, and then getting that reverse camera all hooked up and wired up right, which that shouldn't be too bad. Probably wait another day for like Willie to give me a hand. So this probably is going to be a two-part video. I'll probably do this as just part one and finish it up on part two. There's a lot to be done with the Jimmy. I probably do need to give it a good bath and a cleaner inside. Yeah, power wash the engine. It just needs to be cleaned. It's been neglected for a while, so at least the oil pressure is good now. So need to look forward to doing the timing chain, getting that little clack, because it's probably hitting the guides. Gone. Doing the throttle body spacer, getting the bigger air filter on it, cleaning up the engine bay. Probably fixing this AC line, because that's definitely where the leak's coming from, is this fitting. Probably a new compressor too. But one thing at a time. I would like to get it repainted. Just repaint it white, probably just like a Mako paint job, or you know, even do it myself. We'll just have to see what happens. But this is part one. It's done. We'll have a part two of probably me putting the panels back in, wiring up the backup camera, and trying to get that dash all situated. It's going to be a pain in the ass, I'm telling you guys. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, leave comments. Please like, share the video. Keep watching.